Today, I'm going to share what's getting in my bag for my Charleston, South Carolina workshop. One of those things is my Nikon 800 PF, and I'm going to share some ways that I've customized this lens, some accessories that are available for the big, long wildlife lenses from aftermarket producers like Karl Zemlin, Kase filters, Kirk Enterprise Solutions, just some ways to make an already awesome long piece of glass even better. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. I'm gonna really quickly share what I'm taking to Charleston, South Carolina and how I'm transporting it. Before I jump in and I talk about some ways that I have customized my 800 PF lens. There are also ways that you could customize your 400 or your 600 or a big lens from another brand. These aftermarket producers are making great stuff for the big wildlife lenses that really improve on the brand's equipment. Really quick before we jump in, I just want to plug the fact that we've got a big free office hour meeting. We're going to be looking at images and telling stories from Charleston as well as our trip to Cuba. We got a bunch of trips rolling up. It's going to be a little bit of a gap here between office hours, the big free group photography meetings, but it's going to be on May 2nd, 10 a.m. Pacific. Sign up at hudsonhenry.com/office hours or hit this link, leave us a question. And while we're out on the road, Rick, me, maybe David will be taking a few of your questions and doing a couple ATSs from the road. So make sure you drop us a question when you sign up. All right, so I'm doing things a little bit differently for Charleston. Charleston's gonna have a lot of bird photography, but having done this workshop a number of times, I know that we're going to be rolling into a couple of spots where, we're not going very far from the car. It's actually got paved trails to some of the swamps that we'll be photographing birds nesting, boardwalks, easy walking distance from the car where we're going to the South Carolina Center for Birds of Prey, where they'll be flying birds for us as a private group. It's a raptor rehabilitation center. So I'm going with this wheeled carry-on bag. This is a bag I've had for a long time, but I haven't used that much. It's the Think Tank Airport International version 3. And the nice thing about it is it's designed for a big lens. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to kind of carefully open it because I have a lens sitting right there in the top. It's got my Z9 with my 800 PF as customized, as I'm going to show you how I did. Right here slotted in. Right next to it is my set of Kase filters, a mix of the new Revolution as well as some Wolverine filters and a 1.4 teleconverter. I've got underneath my HB97 hood for those 112 millimeter filters. I've got my 100 to 400 millimeter Nikkor, which goes great with that 1.4 teleconverter, kind of gets me between 100 millimeters and 800 millimeters. I've got my 105 macro and its hood right here, or not 105 macro, my 105 1.4 portrait lens, because we're going to be walking around Charleston streets and it's full of characters, and I might want to do a little bit of long lens, low light street work while we're walking the streets of Charleston. I have my 24 to 120 S lens, the ultimate sort of knock around all-in-one lens from my perspective. And underneath that, with a nice big microfiber cleaning cloth, is my 14 to 24 in case I want to do any ultra wide angle work. All that fits right in here, and there's still room for me to pack batteries for everything and chargers into here. Keep those out of my checked bag. I've also got a bunch of lens cleaning stuff in here and things I might need, along with a 77 to 112 millimeter Kase magnetic adapter and a 112 millimeter filter lens cap, magnetic lens cap. I still have room to pack stuff into here. So that's my kind of rolling onto the plane, putting the overhead. Don't lose any of that precious gear bag. The other thing I'll have in my carry-on is this Gregory bag, which is linked in my links. All the stuff that I use, care about, talk about, I'll put that airport roller bag in there too, is in my ATS links. You run over to my website or hit this link right here, hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. All the things that I've used, tested, stand behind, believe in are linked right there. Those links help me out, so I appreciate your using them. This is my little Gregory bag. I'll have my laptop, computer, my Z6 II with a 50 millimeter, my Leica Q2 for walking the streets of Charleston, and my GoPro in there. Just maybe some more batteries, just batteries and chargers. All the stuff that I absolutely have to have. You know, I can buy clothes, I can buy a toothbrush, but I gotta have that stuff, all right? In my checked bag, I'm gonna have a little photo backpack, a smaller one, because I'm either gonna sling the 800 or roll the rolling bag. It's actually, I can't show it to you because it's a prototype. It's a cool new thing coming from Evo that I'm testing for them. So I'm excited. I'm taking that to see what I think of it, and knowing those guys, it's gonna be awesome. I haven't quite got it yet, but I'll have it when I take off on the plane. And I'll have my big fluid head because I'm gonna be working with the 800 and I'm gonna be doing landscapes. And again, you know, we're not doing any backpacking into far reaches with winter mountaineering gear and stuff. So this 7-pound fluid head system will do everything a gimbal would do, right down to everything a ball head would do for me, and is great for panoramas and architecture and everything else. So that I'll pack into my rolling bag, my big Osprey Transporter 120, alongside that technical new little backpack that I'm testing out, and some clothes. So that's what I'm taking to Charleston. All right. I'm gonna check back in, and I'm gonna talk to you about the evolution of how I've been using that 800 PF checked in my bag. I'm gonna show you a bunch of really killer accessories that I think Nikon kind of dropped the ball, not just providing with these lenses, but they made a great set of lenses. So have a bunch of other brands, and aftermarket production companies have come up with all the rest. So I'm gonna share what I've found over the last year of using the 800. If you've been following this channel any period of time, you know how much I love this Nikon 800 millimeter PF lens for the S system, and how much I love its smaller yet bigger brother, the 400 2.8 teleconverter lens. I'm sure the 600 is just as amazing, and I know that a lot of people with the Canons and the Sonys and the big lenses love their big wildlife lenses too. I have been so happy since I got this lens right before Costa Rica last summer, or early summer, sort of late spring, with its image quality, and with its weight, and with its packability, and its hand-hold ability, and everything else about it, the price, you name it. There were a few things that were a little disappointing when it came out of this bag. I liked this bag that Nikon shipped it in. When I pulled it out, it had this handle with a nice grip, but there was no Arca Swiss dovetail on it. It had this funky lens cap, which is really a big piece of sort of pleather, you know, fake leather, that has a drawstring, and you pull it off. It's a little awkward to get it on and off. And the front element of the lens sits really close right there, with no threads to put a UV filter or attach a lens cap to. It has a nice hood with a mechanical switch. When you pull it off, you turn it around, stick it on. You know, I found, though, that it's a little bit awkward in Costa Rica and in Glacier National Park and in Grand Teton National Park in Yosemite during workshops, to just have this ready to go in the car with its hood on or with its cap on. And the first accessory that I got for it, well, the second accessory that I got, well, no, I think the first accessory actually was something that I saw David Archer had in Costa Rica, which is this Lenscoat little padded front lens cap. And that just enables you, you know, say we're rolling around. I would have this up on the dashboard in El Jefe while I was riding passenger and Rick was driving, and I could easily reach up, grab it, and if something amazing was happening, shoot without even putting the hood on. It's a real quick, easy access, yet it keeps that front element protected while driving around. I've got a link to that in this video's description. Again, you know, you click on the title or show more, you'll see all the links to everything that I'm talking about. And you can always run over to hudsonhenry.com/ATS links, and you'll find links to all of the accessories that I'm talking about with this lens in the lens section with the 800 PF. And they'll work for multiple different sizes lenses. I'll tell you which size this is. I think it was an XXL, but it's listed in my links, and it's linked in this video's description. So that was an improvement, right? The other thing was, like I said, the original foot that came with this had no Arca Swiss mount built in from the company, which seems like a giant whiff and a miss for me from Nikon. Now some might say, well, they were really doing cost cutting with the 800, offering it for less than $10,000, offering it for less than $7,000 compared to, you know, the $15,000 lenses that we typically expect this caliber and size of lens to be. Yeah, but the 800 or the 400 2.8, which is much, much more expensive, twice as expensive as this lens, also came with that crummy foot that doesn't have an Arca connection. You'd have to bolt an Arca Swiss rail to it. Kirk Enterprise Solutions, you know, one of my favorite aftermarket camera support manufacturers. They sent me a foot, I tested it, I thought it was just a little, needed a couple little refinements, and then they sent me a second prototype, and I love it. This foot is linked alongside all the other accessories for this lens on approaching this, or on my ATS links page, and they made it really easy to dive in here and access the Allen bolts that hold this on. There are 4 of them, and they send a really nice, high quality Bondhaus T-wrench, Allen wrench, to make sure that you don't accidentally strip any of those. That comes with the foot. And you know, if I want to use it on a tripod, there's 2 great things about this foot. The first is, when I want to use it on a tripod, they made it nice and long. Well, there's 3 great things about it. And so in that way, you know, whether you're on a gimbal or a fluid head like I prefer, you can get it nice and balanced so that it's not going to flop. And then, you know, you're off. You're running around, you're photographing, you're filming, it's nice and balanced. Just having that longer stretch to get forward and backward, depending on your tripod support, really, really nice, really, really handy when you're working with it on a tripod. They made a nice, nice grip handle that's comfortable in your hand for carrying it, and they also put a quick QD disconnect, quick disconnect in the foot so that you can sling it from your QD strap. Now a lot of people freak out, but for the last year I've been slinging it on my Luma Labs loop through Costa Rican rainforests, up and down mountains, through Glacier National Park, the Grand Tetons, you name it. It has been bouncing around on my side. These QDs are something that the Special Forces use with sniper rifles and AR-15s and all the different weapons that they use. It is burly. It's a great system. So I love the fact that that QD is sitting there in that foot. So that foot is a really, really great accessory that just improves the lens right off the bat. For quick access and shooting without a hood, this little quick lens coat cap is also really, really nice. But, you know, one of the things that I was interested in for this lens, say you're set up in a stable position in a wetland and you'd really like to polarize for the reflections on the water, Nikon offers, you know, a drop-in polarizer for this system, or a drop-in filter set. Right now it's just blank when you get it, you know, straight out of the box. And I ordered a $500 polarizer from them and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. It never came. And then my representative from Kase, my distributor who I work with Kase filters, said, hey, Kase has produced Nikon drop-in filters for the 400, 600, and 800 millimeter lens. They all use the same drop-in, and they made them magnetic, and they sell them in a 2-filter kit. So right now, I have the circular polarizer dropped into the holder. You could switch that with an ND filter. I also have an ND8. Now, why would you want to slow down the shutter speed of a long lens? It's for video. You know, if you want that slower shutter speed for a beautiful cinematic long lens shot, having a little neutral density can really, really help out. So it's nice you can switch whichever you want in here, and turning the little knurled finger knob on it spins the filter so you can polarize, and you just pull out the Nikon version, drop in the Kase version. There's a little signal that says which one's the front, which I was ignoring as I dropped it in. You drop it in there, it sets in and locks, and you can spin the filter. It polarizes. You want it out, there's a push button, pull out. So pretty cool. You can leave that guy in there. My one complaint with the system from Kase, it's a beautiful, beautiful little system, works great. It's about the same price as Nikon's polarizer to get both the neutral density filter and the polarizer as a 2-filter kit. I like that you can mix and match and switch them around. The one complaint I have is that it came with this little leather box and a plastic bag to hold the spare filter in, which is not particularly protective. So I actually went out aftermarket and found this really affordable on Amazon little padded small filter case. And it's really nice because you can drop your case filter holder with the polarizer right in one sleeve of it, drop your neutral density filter in the other, fold them up, weighs almost nothing, slip it in the case with your lens. Much more protective. So that's a pretty cool accessory, especially considering the fact that you still, I don't think, can get the Nikon filters for this. So way to go, Case. Another thing that popped up was during my printing workshop here in Portland. My good friend Alex Doherty showed up with his 400-8 1.4 teleconverter, like David Archer's lens that I shot with in Costa Rica and loved. And he had a really cool aftermarket hood, longer, built from 3D printing, made by Karl Zemlin. And I went looking over Karl Zemlin's website, reached out to him, and got some stuff to demo. So Karl is a 3D printing wizard, and he's a guy who, like me, is a bit of a perfectionist and wants everything to be the absolute best. And he was a little disappointed with the fact that there's no lens cap for this lens, and he thought that the hood could be better, lighter, more modular, easier to use. And so he solved both of those with a 3D printer. He makes this stuff himself. You can order from him. He's super responsive. I'm putting a link to his site. I have no affiliate status with Karl, but I love sending him business because his stuff is so cool. So let me show you one of the coolest things is this Karl Zemlin 3D printed cap. He makes it for all the Nikon Z big glass. He makes it for other brands big glass. The fact that there's no threads or connection or lens cap included with this lens, stock, straight out of the bag. Whoop. How great is that? I mean, seriously, how awesome is that? Way to go, Karl. And you don't have to align it in any specific way. It fits so well, so snug, not coming off there unless you push the clutches on it. It's just awesome. I love it. Soft on the back. It's awesome. So there's that. Then he also designed a really creative series of different hoods. You can get a bunch of different sizes. This is a 2-stage, 2-piece hood that's longer than the stock Nikon hood put together, but shorter for packing and stowing and carrying, and not significantly heavier, even though it's bigger in 2 pieces. And he came up with a way to mount it that is truly awesome. It might take me just a second because it actually lines up around the bayonet on the lens for the original hood. So you have to kind of line it up. You open this little screw. There's a tiny Allen screw, and he includes a very nice little Allen wrench with a ball head on the long end and a hard edge. Oops, somebody's at my front door. I should have probably turned that off. Anywho, it's probably a package. So we'll go ahead and we'll just drop this guy aligned over that bayonet mount, and you can kind of feel it drop in. There it is. It won't really move once you get it there. And then you take his included Allen wrench with its round end, and he has detailed instructions both on YouTube and included in printed form with this hood. And you just tighten that little screw. And as you tighten it, it cinches that down around an indent in this ring that's patterned exactly like the bayonet mount in your lens, so it can't move a bit. As you start to get kind of tight and it gets a little hard to turn, you want to switch and snug it with the short end of the Allen wrench to avoid stripping it out. He has detailed instructions about that. Make sure and read Karl's instructions on how to do this, but it's not difficult. Now we're snug, it's not going anywhere, and you can take his lens, his bayonet mount lens and drop it in, whoop, and you'd have it ready to go like I showed you packed in the bag for Charleston. You can also take it off. It's in 2 pieces here, so you get a hold and you got it. Actually, it's easier to do while it's mounted, I find. So you're gonna do that, pop that guy off, pop this guy off, pull the 2 off as 2 separate pieces. And you can just use one stage of it if you want, but if you really wanna protect the front element of your lens and have even more hood, you can drop it in there. Whoops, I don't have it quite lined. There we go. Whoop, like so. And now you've got an even better hood than Nikon shipped with the lens. You want to put your Zemlin lens cap on. Oh, I already have it on. Yep. Reach in. That easy. So there you go. The stuff's really durable, lightweight, 3D printed, nicely made. I say way to go, Karl. Like, way to improve an already awesome, awesome lens. One more thing that I got recently from my case. Actually, I'll say one more thing for Karl. He also makes a lighter weight, more flexible Nikon Z9 eyepiece, which he included one for me. You just push the button to release yours, and it mounts just like that. I kind of like the Hoodman because it rotates, but it has that little eye cup that keeps stray light out from the side, which you can rotate either direction for which eye you have. But Zemlin's is really nice too, and either one of them are significantly better than the stock eye cup, which Nikon shipped with the Z9, unfortunately. I wish I could say differently, but you know, Nikon really kind of made one that falls apart with heavy use, and that's a bummer. So, all right, that being said, let's look at one more cool accessory that you might want to use if you're going into rough conditions with your big long prime lens. And that's another thing that Kase has made. It's a UV filter for these lenses, the Nikon 400, the Nikon 800, the Nikon 600, some other brands' lenses that don't have filter threads on the front. And it starts with this ring right here, which has these little push-out pieces and tiny Allen wrenches. You loosen the little Allen screws that push these little soft pads out and grip the lens. You start with them loosened and set it in there, and it comes with a tiny little Allen head screwdriver, itsy bitsy, and you just essentially put it in there and tighten each one of these screws a smidge. And as you do that, they push out gently into the outer part of the lens. I wouldn't overdo it. And like you were changing a tire with the lug nuts, I would do opposing screws. So, you know, go one side, then the other side. You don't need to over tighten them. You're not trying to damage anything. You just want this thing to get in there and hold itself in firmly. And to my mind, there's no reason not to have this adapter in this lens. It's not doing any harm. It's not causing any vignetting. Once it's in nice and solid, then the UV filter that comes with it threads right onto it. Now the only problem with this is, and it's a bummer, that it has a very, very fine ring to keep from vignetting. So Kase's metal cap needs to be used. It's a great cap, it's just heavier. It's the same kind of system. It has 2 fingers to push, click it in place. There's no vignetting using this at all, but Zemlin's really cool 3D printed cap. It doesn't have enough depth for it to fit in. So Zemlin's cap is what you use when you're not using the filter and you're not using this system. So you can still use the Zemlin the hood, no problem at all with the Kase UV filter. So if you're a person who has to have a UV filter on your lens and it bugs you that you can't with the Nikon big primes, well, now you can. You just get this Kase Nikon 800mm PF adapter and cap, boom, you've got a UV filter, which is nice for keeping your front element perfect. So for me, when I go to Charleston, I'm going to be using this in such tame conditions and controlled conditions walking from the car that I'm probably going to leave this adapter off and just run with my Zemlin cap and hood on there. But that's some fun stuff. I really am impressed both by Kase, Zemlin, and Kirk with the stuff that they've made for this lens. They've made the lens that much better, and I loved it from the moment I took it out of the bag. But you know, I would say to Nikon, coming up with a real lens cap and putting a system in where you could mount a UV filter would have been nice in these lenses. They're amazing, and I know they're pushing the weight limit and hand holdability, and they're trying to keep all that stuff to a minimum. But good job for these companies for doing aftermarket work to make it better. Again, all the stuff I've talked about is in this video's description. Just click the title or show more. It's also over at my website if you want to check out my links at the website. I hope that you choose to sign up for the office hours that we're having on May 2nd, 10 a.m. Pacific, big open photography get together. We'll do a Q&A. We'll share some images from Cuba and Costa Rica, or from Cuba and Charleston. We'll share some stories from those workshops. There's bound to be a bunch of fun stories to share from those workshops. I can't wait. In the meantime, as you add those questions, we'll be looking at them to do some ATSs from the road, answering your questions. So make sure you submit questions when you sign up at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. Hope you're all staying fun, staying safe, staying creative. We'll see you next week.